Hey, welcome back to Dear Baseball Guys. This is episode 61, and still some new audio video changes. I'm trying this out in 4K on my camera, so we'll see how that works. I'm trying this out on a new used mic, a Shure mic, which probably sounds, I would guess, identically the same. But nonetheless, I am still doing all this audio stuff and video stuff, trying to be less terrible at it. So anyway, if you do watch the YouTube version, you'll probably notice that it's slightly better, about as good as it could possibly be, I guess, at this point. But anyway, we'll see. If you send me an email or a message, I continue to be fascinated about how everyone is different in their communication style, which I've learned over the last year for sure. Some people message on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, email, website comments even. And I got a bunch of those this week as a request from my last episode, which I just asked everyone plainly, could you let me know why you listen? Just curious, like if you're a parent, you're a coach, you're a player, like what it is you kind of get out of this so that I can honestly just make content more relevant to you. So I got a lot of good feedback. I think there's a lot of, from what I've gathered, there's a lot of parents who have kids, obviously, and they're trying to just navigate the youth baseball waters as best they can, and I think that's an admirable goal. I think it's really tough, and I'm definitely planning some more stuff in the future, and I think my book, when it gets finished, it's out of my hands for the moment, which I'm really excited about. I think that'll also shed a lot of light on just like the journey that you follow, because obviously I followed it. So thank you if you sent me an email. If you still feel compelled to do that, I'd love to hear from you, so I really do appreciate it. So this week, I'm going to talk about things the average baseball fan maybe doesn't get when they watch Major League Baseball on TV. I mean this this is not going to be one of those like condescending tone. That's absolutely not the point. There's just a lot of things that even I still like fail to appreciate the more I habituate to it and I watch it on TV. Watching the postseason. I'm recording this, I guess, probably 3 or 4 days before the World Series will start between the Dodgers and the Red Sox. And those guys are just so good, and the game is just so clean. And even the umpires, as much ridicule and scorn as they take, they're still extremely good at their job, especially compared to youth umpires and even minor league and college umpires. Like, they're just very, very good. I think a lot of that stuff goes underappreciated. So, number one, I want to address the Manny Machado thing, because I tweeted a bunch about it, and I watched it happen live. And number one, him stepping on the guy's foot was just so out of left field. It just like kind of shocked me, because I don't personally care that much about the dirty slides into second base. To me, that's still within the confines of the game. It doesn't make it right, and it's not, because you can definitely hurt a guy like Chase Utley did a couple years ago. But it's still like part of the game. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing basketball and you just like, you go up for a block and you're really rough and you just like knock the guy over. I'm not a basketball player, so probably not a great analogy. But it's still like that was part of the game. Whereas what Machado did, in my mind, is kind of just like punching a guy in the stomach while you're just like waiting for a rebound. You know, like and I hadn't like really seen that in a long time. And I couldn't think, and I still can't, aside from Albert Bell just like absolutely punching Fernando Vina in the face, which is, if you haven't watched that video, Google or YouTube Fernando Vina, Albert Bell. It's unbelievable. Albert Bell's just charging from first to second on a double play ball, and they just run into each other. But Albert Bell like literally just punches him in the face. It's just unbelievable that he wasn't just like kicked out of the league. But I digress. So that obviously I have a big problem with, because it just like it made no sense. Like there's cameras on every part, and not that you should be conducting yourself based on cameras. It's not like you should be nice because only Santa's watching, but it just didn't. I haven't seen anyone do something that strange, like that, just like malicious. And it wasn't like it was the biggest deal in the world. It wasn't like he, pulled out a knife and shanked him on his way by. But it still was just like really strange. I don't have a memory from my baseball career of someone doing something like that. Again, like the hard slides, the stuff like that, like throwing at guys. It's probably not that different, but it felt different. But anyway, the first one of these 6 items that I want to address is hustle. So Machado, after that, rightfully so, got a lot of scorn. He got a lot of, he's a dirty player. That was BS. That was just completely uncalled for. 100% true. And then, just like anything else, when you screw up and you're public and it's an ignominious failure, everything else got called out, right? They called him out for his hustle. And here's my thing. I'm not really defending Manny Machado because my view of him as of today is not very positive. But everyone makes a big fuss out of guys not hustling out ground balls. And here's my official statement of it. Number one, the Major League Baseball season is incredibly long. And a lot of these guys are playing hurt or they're playing with swollen ankles. They got some knee pain. They have this, they have that. There's a lot of stuff that the fans you're just not aware of that they play through. I wasn't even aware of Jose Altuve needing knee surgery until they told me. So I could have easily arrived at the ballpark and not realized that Jose Altuve, like, literally his knee was literally killing him. So when there's like an injury that's that big that if you're not really tuned into baseball, you could just not even know that he's playing on that. There's tons of little stuff they're just never going to tell the press. That's just not worth telling. That's like, yeah, my shoulder hurts. Like, chances are the catcher's shoulder hurts or his elbow hurts, but he's been playing that way the whole year. Chances are the outfielder's knees bothering him or he's got a little tweak in his obliques or his ankles or something. But just like my experience my last bunch of years is that pretty much everyone had something that nagged at them. And when you have guys that are chronically bugged by something, you take little opportunities to try to help it heal without coming out of the lineup. So I was talking to a great guy, a great coach named Joe. He came down and visited today, and he was talking about how they went and watched Christian Yelich play, who I have a lot of respect for, especially after him speaking up against what Machado did. He explained that he saw them play in person in Milwaukee, and Yelich at one point walked off the field from left field. And we talked about this, and he didn't know why, and I didn't know why, but I said I almost guarantee he had something going on that the trainer said, like, look, just walk off the field between innings. Like, you can play on this. It's going to only get better. It's going to take a while to get better, but we're going to give it the best shot if you just walk off the field rather than running your 260 feet from left or whatever it was. So I don't know that. I don't have any evidence of that. But given that I've seen him play enough that he seems like an upstanding guy, a guy who plays the game the right way, who in general is a hustler and like a team leader and a just overall like respectable player, I can guarantee he wouldn't have just walked off the field. I guess I can't guarantee it, but I pretty much guess that he wouldn't walk off the field unless there was some like medical reason why he did that, right? And people saw it and they didn't know why, and it looked really bad. And then that same game, he was like kind of like coasting after balls in the gap, and like kind of just strolling down to first base when he was out. And it all sort of coincides that he was probably nursing an injury. No one needed to know about it, but he wasn't going to come out of the lineup because he was still more valuable maybe at 80% than he was on the bench at 0%. But he was like, that was probably the plan for him, to just walk from the outfield and just trot to first base because, look, you're out anyway. Like, let's get you healthy in a month. Let's just take it easy now. And that's often the case. Now, the other thing, so just assume that sometimes guys are doing that just to like save their legs, just to get a little bit healthier perhaps. That's more often the case than you'd think. So that's one reason I think hustling down to first when you're out on a routine ground ball, not that big a deal. Number two, guys don't not hustle when there's a chance they're going to be out. I mean, rarely, once in a while they do, but when they hit a ball, like it's a double play ball, they book it down the line. When there's a chance right off the bat, they know they might beat it out, they book it down the line. The only time guys really don't run it down the line is when they hit it pretty hard right at someone, and they're out on that ball 99% of the time. And as much as people want to say, like, hey, you know, these are guys being paid millions of dollars, they should hustle down the line just because, like, so many people and kids would kill to be a major leaguer for even one day. That's somewhat valid, but at the same time, it's kind of human nature when you just pretty much know the outcome to just not give it your all, to not waste your effort. It's just like, I feel like it's an evolutionary thing. Animals don't sprint around the desert just to sprint, and I don't think any of us really want to waste effort when we just for sure know it's wasted, right? So when you're, you know, a big lefty power hitter in the major leagues and you hit a one hopper to the second baseman, do we need to like watch you sprint through first base just to watch you sprint through first base? Is there really any point? And with most of these, you know, there's, of course, once in a while there's an errant throw where if you were hustling, you might beat that out. That might be 1 out of 200. It's really not that frequent. And a lot of the times when they overthrow it, it goes to the screen, you could be jogging and you'd still be safe. You'd be exactly as safe if you ran down there and you were bang, bang, right? So if it's a legit overthrow getting past the first baseman, whether you run 80% down the line or 100%, you're going to be safe. So really the only times where it matters to be Johnny Hustle down the line is when it's bang, bang, where like it takes the first baseman off the bag a little bit towards the plate where he could catch it and swipe the tag down. Where if you're just getting past him at that point because you ran hard, he won't be able to tag you, or you can dive or whatever. But balls that take the first baseman towards the outfield where they're leaning and they like get dragged off the base, they can't get their foot back on the base that fast anyway because their momentum takes them off. They have to like right themselves and pick themselves up and then kind of like tag the bag with their foot that way. That takes too long. Even if you jogged, you'd still kind of beat them down there. And granted, I'm sure you could come up with counter arguments that, no, I've seen this happen, I've seen that happen, sure. But on the whole, you hit a hard ground ball, and major leaguers hit the ball really hard. So their ground balls are in the shortstop's glove within 3-4 steps out of the box, if not faster than that. So they like just pretty much know the outcome. And major leaguers are so amazingly good at making all the plays. So as far as everyone like coming down on him for his hustle, number one, he clearly doesn't hustle that much, and I just like don't think it's that big of a deal for some of the reasons that I've given. I also don't think it's realistic that we need to like, and I understand the example we set to kids, but at the same time, I think it's human nature to not waste your time when it's a waste of time. And when you hit a seed at an infielder and you're out, there it is. I don't think there's any point. I don't think anyone really in the stands like, oh, good for him. He ran full speed down the base. That's the way the game's played. I think playing the game hard and the right way is a long-term thing. I don't think it's a short-term thing where if you sprint out every ball, even when you're out by a mile. I don't think that's really playing the game harder. I think playing the game harder baseball is a hard, long mental game, and grinding it out over a long period of time, like staying in the lineup, staying mentally focused, having good at-bats, hustling when hustling is required, when it's relevant and necessary, not when it's useless, conserving energy when it's useful, preparing to play every day, doing all the things that are necessary to be at your best. I think that is like being a hard-nosed player. And I don't think we can just distill being a hard-nosed ball player down to running down through the first baseline. Because like I said, a lot of the times, and this isn't exclusive to Machado, it's not exclusive to anyone. Guys, when they hit a hard ground ball at someone and they know they're out, they don't run full speed. They just don't, because there's just no point. And, there's a term eyewash, which has been popularized recently, and it's gotten annoying. But what eyewash is when you're just doing stuff just to like make the people that are watching think you're doing something. It's like, running down the baseline not because you really like are that kind of player, but because people are watching and you want to look like that kind of player. To me, that's kind of what that is at the major league level, and even at some lower levels. I don't know that you could say, that this guy deserves to play at a better level because he runs through first base. There's just a lot of other intangibles that matter more as a player, and I just don't think it's that big a deal. I'm just going to stop on that note. I just don't think it's that big a deal that you don't hustle. Now, I'm not saying that sums up Machado as a player, because I know he is probably lazy in other regards, but also he's an exceptional player, and he doesn't do that without having some hard work that you don't see behind the scenes. So whatever his qualification of work is, he's getting it done because it's not that easy just to show up. Like, the guy is not just like playing video games all night and showing up to the ballpark, throwing on his uniform and going and dominating the major leagues like he is. There's a lot of work that's going in, and he's just doing it in one compartment and then just sort of eliminating the stuff that's not necessarily that important to him. And I sort of have a brain like that, where I don't retain lots of information that I don't find super useful. Like, you cannot, I'm a pitching guy, and I know a lot about pitching mechanics. I know what the research says on a lot of pitching mechanics, and I've read a lot of research studies, but I do not remember who wrote them. I do not remember the names of them. I could not tell you what year or any of that stuff. Some people they can recite, this, Dr. Fleissig, 1996, that was his study, or, I can pull that study up. I don't remember any of that stuff. I remember the takeaway message, how it's relevant to me, and then my brain throws all the other stuff in the trash. So I know there's the idea of taking the optimal dose, not just the maximum dose I'm a person who wants to take the optimal dose of whatever I'm doing. I don't want to take 6 Advil when 2 would do the trick. I don't want to do X amount of work when X minus 12% would do the trick. I was like that in high school. I got mediocre grades because I didn't care, because I didn't find a lot of the information relevant to me. And when I could get an 89.6 and get an A, I chose to get an 89.6 because it was rounded up. Why would I get an 89.6? Or why would I get a 99 that counts as an A when I could get an 89.6 that counts just the same as an A? It seems illogical and it seems wasteful of my effort that I could spend in some other way. It's like I'm not trying to get the best A. I'm just trying to get what I want. So if I want an A, I'll get an 89.6, and I'll spend the extra effort that another kid might have spent 6 or 8 extra hours in that semester, or 20 extra hours getting a 99. I'll spend that extra 20 hours doing something that I actually care about. We'll both get the same A, but I got more time to do other stuff that I found valuable. That's kind of how I've been, and that's sort of my view on hustling down to first base, because I know the purists will probably come after me on this, but I just don't think it's really that big a deal. I don't think the baseball gods are rolling in their graves when you just don't hustle out a ground ball that you're out on. And I don't think just being safe on it one time out of 100 means you should hustle out every time. This is where I fall on it. Next thing I want to ramble about is the cutter. And I meant to have a visual aid here, but I don't. Fortunately, I have this nice gray background. I'm not filming in the same location in my apartment tonight. But the cutter it's an extremely misunderstood pitch. I did a whole podcast about this before, but I also fielded some questions on my Instagram and some sort of mind-numbing discussion about it. Here's the problem with comparing what your kids throw at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 to what guys throw on TV. So and the cutter is the best example of this. The cutter is not a pitch that a 12-year-old can throw. They can pick a grip and they can try to make the ball move to their glove side, which is what a cutter is, one of the things that a cutter does. But they they cannot possibly throw a cutter in the same sense that a cutter is thrown by a higher level player. Because what a cutter is a fastball goes down a straight tube. Imagine you have a big piece of PVC. The fastball goes straight down that PVC to its target, right? Now, a cutter goes straight down that same tube until the last little bit, and then the slight amount of tilt on the ball where you've turned it just a little bit sideways but still thrown it 99% as hard as the fastball, or 97%, it just takes a little sharp veer to the left. So basically, with a cutter, less movement is what makes the pitch great. And you have to throw super duper hard to throw the pitch so that it tracks down that same PVC pipe, so that it actually rolls down it without getting off on trajectory before it moves at the end. So, and I meant to pick these up on the way home, but I didn't. I was going to get 2 like milkshake straws where you bend it. So you have the straight straw and the straw with a little bit of a bend at the end. And only when you throw really, really hard can you force your fastball to or your cutter down the fastball's straw, down this fastball PVC pipe till the very, very end. You can't, if you throw slower, the trajectory changes a lot sooner. It goes out of that PVC pipe early, and it doesn't look anything like the pitch. So when you see guys like Kenley Jansen, like Mariano Rivera, throwing a cutter exclusively, it's because the hitter's brain does not understand it. He sees fastball all the way through, like the tunnel point where he's made his decision of where that ball is going to be, and he swings, and then it cuts. But it's only that pitch, and that's what a cutter is. That is, in a sense, is what a cutter is. The cutter is not one of those pitches that there's grades of it, where when you're 12, you can throw a cutter. They're so incredibly different that they're not even the same pitch. A curveball is a curveball. You throw a curveball when you're 12, if you get spin, it'll go up and it'll come down. It's very different than a fastball. And then curveballs increase in quality as they get older, and this is the same principle. The harder you throw your curveball and the better the spin is, the more it looks like a fastball longer. So it actually flies on the fastball's trajectory longer before it deviates from it. And so, but at the core, a curveball at 12 is still a curveball at the major league level. They don't look anything like each other. From a hitter's perspective, like a curveball from a major leaguer is so sharp, it's like astonishing. But it still has like the same general shape and it does the same general thing. Cutter's not that way. You physically can't throw a cutter when you're 12 years old. You certainly can't throw it when you're 8 or 9 or 10 because the pitch will not move in any relevant sense like it will at the higher velocities. I have lots of kids that throw me accidental cutters. They get a little bit on the side of the ball, and it has a little bit of a slider dot, or it has like a bullet spin, and it'll like move slightly to the left, but it's absolute garbage. And that's not what a cutter is that you see on TV. It's not a pitch that just goes, meh. A cutter on TV, I threw a cutter, and I've told this story before in a presentation. I threw a cutter when I was learning it in 14 that it was like dead straight, and I couldn't see it move. It was like dead straight, and the hitter starts to swing as a lefty, and he commits to his swing, and then it cut, and he literally said, oh, as he swung, and he missed it. And that's what you're seeing on TV. When you see Kenley Jansen just throw cutters over and over and over, and the guys miss it, you're like, what's going on? Like, they know it's coming. It's because their brain just doesn't get it. It starts to swing, it sees fastball. It can't unsee fastball. You like can't tell the spins apart, so you only see fastball. And then you swing, and then it moves, and it's just like terrifying, and they just go, oh my God, what's happening? And it misses their bat. But I've caught a million kids throwing accidental cutters where they just get on the side of the ball and it has a mixture of like slidery, just junky spin. Zero of them have any effect like that. They just like slowly meander to the other part of the plate. And it's just in no way, if you're to see one at the big league level or even like the college pro level, that you would say that's the same pitch as this 10-year-old throw. So to say like, oh, I give my kid a cutter grip and he just turns a little bit and it's a different pitch. It's not a cutter. It just isn't. It's so fundamentally different that it just like they're not even comparable. And when you accidentally make a ball cut, it's not like you threw a cutter because they don't have the same action. To actually throw a cutter the way the major leaguers throw cutters, you have to be intentional about it. You have to actually tilt the ball, not just like put a little bit of sloppy spin into it. You have to actually be intentional and like tilt the axis of the pitch so it's flying hard like a fastball with a slightly sideways spin axis. It's like a four-seamer spin, slightly angled. And that's why at the last little bit it pushes off and it just terrifies hitters. It just takes this sharp, jagged thing. When you have a really good one, they just can't do anything with it. And back in the day, Mariano Rivera threw his hard enough. Like he was like 92, 93, 94 cutters. That was really hard back then. That was hard for a fastball back then. And so hitters, like that's why they had no chance. And now there's more guys now that like Kenley Jansen would throw 100 if he threw four-seamers, but he throws cutters all the time because no one, like you wouldn't want to throw a four-seamer when you can throw a 96-mile-per-hour cutter because their brains just don't get it. So it's just a fundamentally different pitch, and having learned it in my later years, it was also the hardest pitch to learn. Anyone who says it's not hard isn't throwing the same pitch. It's so hard to learn because you can't see it move. And I posted this on my Instagram recently, so if you haven't been on my Instagram recently, definitely check it out. I posted a video of a cutter that I threw to a guy who I greatly respect, a really good young player who was an independent-only guy like myself named Scott Kelly. And I didn't post this on Instagram to like show my dominance of him. I remembered this because I had a friend in the stands, Mike Ashmore, who is a Somerset Patriots beat writer. He also does a lot of like hockey, and I think he's been covering the postseason too. He's a good sports writer and a good person. He would take video at Somerset, and he was there when I was in Somerset with spring training and I got cut. But he would just like take some video of me, and we would always kind of catch up a little bit when I'd come back into town playing against the Patriots. So on this night, he got video of me from behind, and I remembered throwing this cutter to this guy, Scott, and I remembered for a fact that I didn't know if it cut. I threw it, and I'd been just learning the pitch. I'd been throwing it for a month or two, and on this particular one, it looked completely dead straight to me, but he hit into the ground. And obviously I knew it was a cutter, but I didn't know if it cut. And when guys hit my four-seamer, they never put it in the ground. They always hit in the air. It was like so exclusively a fly ball pitch or a swing and miss pitch or a take pitch that I couldn't get a ground ball. I think that's my spin rate and all this other stuff, but I couldn't get a ground ball. So I knew it might have done something because he hit it on the ground, which is not normal for me. So after the game, I went to the tape because he sent it to me, and I looked at the tape, and sure enough, you can really easily see it cut. I threw a four-seamer the first pitch, and I threw a cutter the second pitch, and you can see the difference on them. So I encourage you to go check them out. And it just like blew my mind. And that's the hard part about that pitch because you can't see it doing anything. And so when you're learning something, it's kind of like if you're teaching your son to throw a curveball, but he had to do it in the dark, or with his eyes closed. How would he ever have any idea what it's doing? You could tell him, oh, that one was really good, and he'd be like, okay, and then he'd do it again, close his eyes, throws it, but he has no feedback, like no tangible feedback to say like, oh, you're right, that's a good pitch. I'm doing the right thing. And that's the thing with the cutter. I had a bunch of teammates teach me it, and one of them, my buddy Sean, he was rated having the best cutter in the Mets minor league organization. And he said, yeah, it's really hard to throw because when you throw it in practice, it will not move at all. And that's correct. If you see it move, you're making it into a slider, and in a game, it will be too big. It will be a slider, it won't be a cutter. So you have to throw it, and you have to get a good partner. So I threw to him a bunch. He's like, you have to go by the feel and by the spin, because when you can spin it right and the feel is right, that's how, when you then ratchet up to full speed, it will actually start to cut. But it cuts so little in the game, only a couple inches, that when you're not throwing it hard, it won't cut at all. And so you have to just trust that I'm telling you the right thing when we play catch, and that you're getting the sense of like what it feels like and what it kind of looks like, because it does kind of look different. It's got like a very subtle roundness almost, even though it's pretty much dead straight. And then sure enough, you're going into the game, and this is what was scary about it. As I was practicing this pitch, I hadn't really like seen it cut except for when I got around it and threw crappy sliders. And then I'm like getting ready to go in the game, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to throw this in the game tonight. And now I'm throwing it in the bullpen full speed, and I'm just like hoping they start to cut, and they like kind of do, kind of don't. But even then, it's hard to tell when they do. And so again, like back to that moment where I got it on video, I was like, wow, it actually cut. But I remember that distinctly because I could not see that pitch move in the game. It looked completely straight to me. So when you watch cutters on TV, because they're more prevalent than ever, just like kind of marvel at it. I mean, it's an astonishing pitch. I guarantee it's the most misunderstood pitch in baseball, just because most guys have never thrown it before, and if you haven't thrown it at a high level, it's just really hard to understand what it is. If I hadn't thrown it that year, I wouldn't be qualified to talk about it in any sense. I just like wouldn't understand like what the process was like and how to throw it, and it's just not like other pitches. And again, it's just I'm privileged that I actually learned it, because I feel like I got some like insider information, because I didn't know anything about the cutter before, and it's just like, it was such an enigma compared to other pitches. It was really, really difficult. So that's what all I'm going to say with the cutter today. So after that, I want to just briefly talk about fielders and umpires. So to really appreciate how good these umpires are and how good these fielders are, I mean, even the guys that are kind of like bad umpires, they make like 98 or 99% of the calls. Like when you look at their charts, and there's some that are better than others, obviously, they still make the right call the vast majority of the time. Now, we're still in a world where there's increased scrutiny because obviously technology is better. There's cameras on everything. They're replaying everything. There's a strike zone projected on TV. All this stuff is just making it harder to do your job well, whereas 5 or 10 years ago, these guys, you wouldn't know that they maybe blew as many calls as they do or whatever. There just wasn't as much scrutiny on it. I think now it's just really brought to light. And, there's a call for automation, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I also don't care that much. There's a human element to baseball, just like, and I try to tell our players that if you're walking in the woods and you like tripped on a rock and like busted your knee open, it wouldn't be very logical to like get mad at the rock. It's just like part of nature. And I always sort of took the mindset that like the umpires and the other players were part of the environment, which were part of nature, which are just part of things that I couldn't control at all. And they weren't things that were trying to screw me either. So, I know Justin Verlander's brother, who's a minor leaguer, commented that like Major League Baseball was trying to get the Red Sox and Dodgers in the World Series. That's why they botched that Altuve call. That Altuve call was not clear. It was probably the right call, the one he made, but it was certainly not clear enough to say, like, he definitely blew the call. It wasn't clear enough to say that he definitely made the right call, but it looked like, from all the evidence from some of the smarter baseball guys who really did some deep analysis on it, it looked like it was the right call. Whether you believe that or not, when you stop, like, blaming a human being, like, that guy screwed me, that's more logical in a sense than like blaming a rock. Like if you run to first base and you trip on a piece of dirt, or you catch your cleat on a piece of big chunk of grass, or you just slip out of the box, you would never say that the dirt screwed you over. That would just be like you're an insane person. But yet when an umpire calls you out on something you disagree with, you say that he screwed you, right? But there's no difference. The umpires are not trying to do that. Players are not trying to screw you over. Your own team's not. The other team's not. It's and when you just realize like they're all, there's no difference between the umpire impacting your game and a bad hop from the ground from the ground impacting your game, or a bad wet patch of grass or a piece of mud or whatever, a patch of mud. All those factors impact your game equally, where it doesn't make any difference why you got screwed or which being or which non-being screwed you over. Just move on. Just deal with it. Just include them all in the same pile. Just lump the umpires, everyone else together as all being things that just like are part of the environment. They're part of the baseball field that should just be, these things happen. But in general, the umpires are extremely good in the major leagues, and I think we give them a lot of grief. And it's not to say they can't be better, because I'm sure they can. But compared to like lower level umpires, they're astonishingly good. Astonishingly good. As are the fielders. I think it's unappreciated how good major league fielders are. How infielders, every throw they make is on the run, pretty much. Not really, but think about how many throws. Anything that's on the grass that they field, they're throwing it on the run. Anything that's like more than a handful of steps in any direction, they're throwing the ball on the run without stopping and setting their feet, without taking a shuffle, without taking a crow hop. They're just throwing on the run. And they still make every single play. They make like literally every single play. It's astonishing. It's really crazy. When you watch young kids try to do this, they throw away every like 10th ball or every 8th ball, every 6th ball that they're throwing on the run, because it's not easy to do that. You know, you're going one direction, you throw it behind your body to a small target on the other side of the field, and they do that literally every time and never miss. It's just crazy that they're that good. And I think it just goes really underappreciated. And as I've been learning new infield techniques to teach our kids, because we just have to get better at fielding, and I have to get better as an instructor, it just gives me more of an appreciation, like that these guys do this. They throw from a million different arm angles. They throw from moving in any given direction, from any given trunk angle, and they still hit their target like literally every time. It's miraculous. So if you've been watching Little League Baseball a bunch, or high school baseball, or college baseball, just like take a step back and marvel at major leaguers, because they're just ridiculous, like how good they are and how far they'll range back to catch a pop-up, a blooper, a tweener. It's just unbelievable. So I think of that more and more. I appreciate high-level fielders more than I ever have, and I appreciate this at the end of my career. I saw the difference between lower-level guys and high-level guys, but it's just crazy how good they are. And then the last thing is just how not obvious coaching moves are. It's really easy to be a desk coach, and with internet, there's more than ever. But a lot of these coaching moves are not nearly as obvious as they seem to be. And the postseason is extremely confusing, and I'm confused by it. I don't agree with a lot of it, but just because I'm behind my computer watching it on Sling TV or whatever doesn't mean I'm qualified to judge. But at the same time, a lot of these coaching moves, like, oh, just go to this guy, just go to that guy, oh, just put him back out there for another inning. There's so many other factors involved, and they have a lot more data at hand. And even then, it's still not obvious like what the right move is. It's sometimes obvious after the fact, where you have hindsight and you be like, oh, you should have done this, oh, you should have done that, or why the umpire do that, or why the manager do this, or why the pitching coach do that. It's just not nearly as obvious when you're in the game, when there's a lot more context than you realize. And I think we as fans, myself included, jump to conclusions a lot, where you're like, I don't know why he did that. It just doesn't seem to make sense. And a lot of times they won't tell you the reason that they do it. And they're not always right, for sure. A lot of times we question it, and we are correct in questioning it, and they do make just bonehead plays sometimes. But a lot of times it's just not clear when you're out there when to hook a pitcher, when to pull the next guy in. Because say, for example, you have your starting pitcher up, and it's in the 5th inning, and say you're in the regular season, and you're not going to bring your 8th inning guy, you're not going to bring your closer in, you're going to bring one of your middle relievers in. is your fresh middle reliever better than your now getting mostly depleted starter? Should you give the guy one more out now that he's got second and third and 2 outs and you got a 1-run cushion? Do you now yank him because you want a fresh guy in that high leverage situation, or do you still kind of ride one of your best pitchers, one of your starters? Do you say, oh, he's great at bearing down in these situations? Sure, you might mentally be, but can you physically do it? It's the art of taking a pitcher out before the bad stuff happens. It's very difficult, and there's no like right way to know when his dogs are completely barking. And I know that I've gone out. I remember very specifically, the first time this happened. I was in my first year. I was with the normal corn belters. It was maybe like inning 80 on the year for me, and that was as many innings I'd ever pitched in a season. And my coach sent me out for 120 pitches, rain or shine, pretty much every game. And I was happy to do it. And I had thrown, I think, like 106 or 107 or something. And I just finished my 7th inning. And I didn't know how I finished it. I just barely got out of it. I felt like I didn't know where the ball was going. And he comes over and he goes, "Hey, Blue, got one more?" I'm like, yeah. I didn't really, I really needed him at that point to be the manager and say, "Hey, good job, way to battle it. You're done." But he asked me, and I'm not gonna say no. So I was like, "Yeah, all right." And deep down, I'm like, this is BS. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna ruin the game for my team and for myself. I've made it. I think to that point, I made 7 innings, 3 runs or something, and I was very confident I was gonna go out there and give up 4 runs. For sure, I was gonna give it up because I barely got out of the last inning. And I knew myself. I just was not throwing. I was not throwing the ball where I wanted it to go. I just had no idea. And so I went back out there, and it was pop up, fly ball, pop up. And I came back in. I finished the 8th inning, and I was like, "Wow, that was really weird." I was very sure I had nothing, and I got through it. So the manager wouldn't know how I was feeling, and if he did, he would yank me because mentally I was checking out. And of course, mentally, I summoned it. I went back out there and I gritted my teeth and did as best I could for my team. I didn't go out there and just woe is me. I went out there and I did the absolute best I could and I competed. However, I just knew my gas tank was empty. I just knew. And he didn't know that, and he just he made the wrong move that day for sure. But he got the good result, and I got a good result, which is great. But it's just not completely obvious. So if you watch that game, you'd say, yeah, good job leaving Blue it in. But if you put me out there 10 times in that same exact situation, I'd probably give up that 4 runs probably 6 of the times. So it's just hard to know when we're going to get burned by that stuff. And I think managers often operate with incomplete information, and even with sabermetrics and all the StatCast data and all the crazy analytics that we have, that stuff still just sits up in the front office and it gets flooded down. But the manager's still making decisions, and they have a plan. But as it goes along in a game, you still have stuff like that, the human element, where you just don't really know. Is this the right time? Do I need to get him now, or he can probably battle out through one? Where you start to romanticize and guess what a hitter or pitcher's psyche is like, and it's just I would give the benefit of the doubt to coaches more often. I guess that's maybe that's what I'm imploring. Or just think about what other contextual things there might be that maybe you're missing, that you're not privy to, because there's often a lot of it. And my thing with the postseason this year is, I don't think just because you're in the postseason, you just put your best guys out there, your best 3 pitchers, whether they're depleted or not. Because I firmly believe, and the Cubs 2016 absolutely proved this without a doubt, that your best pitcher, when he's run ragged, is not your best pitcher. He's the best name, right? That's like having a bottle of your favorite champagne that is rotten. It's still whatever champagne name is. God, my analogies are brutal. But it's rotten. So it's it's not world class anymore. It's spoiled. And Chapman in 2016, when Madden just kept running him out there for 3 innings at a time and 3 innings at a time and 2 days in a row, he just did it wrong. And I think in the postseason, everyone just gets so scared to make a mistake. Why didn't you just leave Josh Hader in there? Why didn't you just let Josh Hader pitch the whole game? And that's I think the test that we need to make is, okay, well, all right, so Josh Hader's amazing for 1 inning, right? Everyone would agree. Well, would we let him pitch all 9 innings? Everyone would say absolutely not. Well, then you say why? Well, you get tired, you get through the order too many times. He's not built for that. Okay, well, you definitely let him pitch 1 inning, but you definitely would not let him pitch 9 innings. So where's the tipping point, right? Is it 5 innings? Do you just make him a starter now miraculously? I think everyone also probably agreed not to do that right away. Well, if you wouldn't have him go 7 innings, then would you have him go 5? No. Would you have him go 4? Maybe. Would you have him go 3? Well, then what's the science behind that? You're just guessing. It feels too long or it feels too short. Well, pitchers are just like anyone else. They get depleted. And if Josh Hader at 100% is better than everyone, Josh Hader when he's at 80% is probably not better than 2 or 3 or 4 other guys in the bullpen. Because he's just not going to have the spin. He's not going to have the feel. He's not going to have the command. Your stuff just gets worse. And we have to realize that our best pitchers are not our best pitchers when they're tired. It's just how it is. Just like, Jose Altuve, he might be Jose Altuve with a banged up knee, but if his ACL was torn, he could not play, right? So there's that stuff with all that stuff. Where's the line where they can still be themselves, where it's rather just put another guy in at second base because Altuve is too hurt to be Altuve. He's not Altuve anymore. So I really disagree with a lot of the playoff usage where it's just all right, we're just going to make our starters relievers, our relievers are starters. We're just going to throw our best guys in there. If this guy pitched really well on Tuesday, he's going to pitch 4 more innings on Thursday. I just don't think that makes sense. And if you won 108 games like the Red Sox with your team in a normal way, why is that not good enough in the playoffs? I don't really get it. I get you that you kind of go with the hot hand, but I feel like there's been a lot of decisions made based on emotion and based on fear, where it's I'm too scared to lose with my third best reliever, so I'm just going to leave my best reliever out there until he literally dies, until his arm explodes and he's not throwing 98, he's not throwing 93 because he's so tired. I don't think that's better. If you have Clayton Kershaw going out there and he's throwing 85, is he still Clayton Kershaw? He's still probably Clayton Kershaw 89 because he pitched like that the other day, but is he still Clayton Kershaw when he's throwing 84? He's definitely not. He can't pitch the same way. So, I don't know. I just think coaching decisions are certainly questionable at times, and I think oftentimes there's other contextual stuff that we don't know, and I think it's not always as obvious as it might seem what the right thing to do is, including going to your best guys every time when you're scared. So, anyway, there you have it. Again, feel free to shoot me a message. Let me know. Again, I'm not looking for a praise or anything like that. That's not my goal. If you feel like, hey, this is kind of who you're talking to, Dan, and this is kind of what I listen for, really valuable to me because I produce YouTube videos, all this other stuff that's hopefully relevant to whoever my audience is. And I'm starting to figure it out a little bit. But again, feel free to reach out. Would love to hear from you. All right, see you next week on Dear Baseball Gods.